What's up? I'm Emrose and I do a lot of stuff. I am a big journaler. It's a huge part of my writing practice overall, and I'm always on the hunt for new ways to approach that practice. I'm also a fiction writer, and what I've found is that having a journal or a diary or a writing diary is something super beneficial for being actually able to show up for my bigger projects, those long novels, those complicated stories. So I have been super interested in trying out morning pages for a while. Morning pages are actually something I first heard about on Instagram, and I didn't really have the full context about them or where they came from. I could just tell that a lot of people, a lot of creators use them as sort of a means for creative health. They sat down in the morning and they journaled a certain number of morning pages. Well, I recently looked it up and it comes from this book here. It's called The Artist's Way. It's by Julia Cameron. This book has been printed like a bajillion times. Julia Cameron actually has a lot of sort of artist, how would I say it? Creative guides for blocked creators, artists, writers. This one is very much about recovering a creative sense of self, possibly from burnout, possibly from criticism or lack of nurturing of sort of our artistic sides. And morning pages are talked about right away in chapter 1. They are a real foundation of this process that Cameron outlines. So what are morning pages and what do I think of them? Plus a mini review of this book overall. Let's get started. The concept of morning pages is actually pretty simple, which I always think is good for a journaling practice. Basically, what Cameron describes is first thing when you wake up, you roll out of bed, you write 3 pages, kind of when you're in this like foggy state of not quite awareness, if that makes sense. There are many benefits that she sees in the process of writing these 3 pages first thing every day. But the primary one is getting around your self-censor, the little voice in your head that says, oh, like, worry about this. Oh no, what you're writing right now isn't worth it. Oh, you're being too whiny, you're being too petty. The morning pages to her are both the place to kind of get out like the whininess, the pettiness, the mundane thoughts, you know, the laundry, the grocery list, those kind of thoughts that stick in our head and kind of block our progress sometimes. And it's also a way to bolster yourself against that like self-censor. Really cool to me, like a really interesting idea, kind of one that I had a sense of already. But when I have tried daily journaling in the past, I actually have a video about this. You can check it out if you'd like to. But when I did that experiment, it was for 30 days in a row, and as long as I put down 1 sentence a day, I considered that enough. Like, I wasn't holding myself to a certain quantity of pages. It was more about the act of actually committing to it. Cameron is really insistent on the 3-page thing. It's 3 pages no matter what, no matter how bored you are, no matter how much resistance you are running into. Ideally, it would be an every single day thing in the framework of her sort of course here that's outlined in this book. Now, that is a very hard line approach. I am not somebody who really gravitates towards like, you must do this every single day type of things. However, as you read through this book, one of the one of the repeated prompts over and over is, did you do your morning pages every day this week? If you didn't do them, why? So there's still some room for flexibility there, at least in the way I see it. So I certainly haven't been doing them every day, but I have been writing them quite a few days out of the past 30, especially with my writing projects this month and with NaNoWriMo. I've been trying to make it a priority to start my day that way. So what did I like about trying out morning pages? First of all, I found it very freeing. It's nice to set aside some time for yourself to write in a way that where it like doesn't have to be good. I've always felt this way. This is why I'm so attached to journaling in the first place. My journal, it does not have to be good. In fact, one of the parts of this book that really resonates with me is in the paragraphs where she's describing the morning pages. She says, "There's no wrong way to do morning pages. These daily morning meanderings are not meant to be art or even writing. Pages are meant to be simply the act of moving the hand across the page and writing down whatever comes to mind. Nothing is too petty, too silly, too stupid, or too weird to be included." I also love this as an idea of getting past sort of that censor or that self-criticism. For me, I'm actually in kind of a good place with that. I feel like I have built up a little bit of a buffer between myself in the creative mode versus in the critical mode this year. However, if you're like stuck, if you're blocked, I think just watching your hand move across the page, 3 pages every morning. I actually do 2 pages. My journal is very like narrow lined. That's my excuse. I don't actually know. That's one of the big questions I have about what Cameron intended for the morning pages, because sometimes they take me a really long time, sometimes a little bit more time than I would normally be willing to commit to something when I could be jumping in and dedicating some of that time to an actual project. Sometimes in this book she describes like jotting out 3 pages in 15 minutes, which I just like, wow, I just don't understand that. I do think with practice it probably becomes quite fast and it becomes quite stream of consciousness, but I definitely wasn't there. But it's what I was saying was, it's a very kind thing that you can do for yourself to just say, I am going to write 3 pages no matter what my critical brain is telling me right now. A couple of things. There were times when I found it quite boring, and there were times when I had to really search for things to write about. There's only so much that you can write about your daily goings on when those are very repetitive. I think that's kind of the point. Like with such a lengthy morning page practice every single day, eventually you're going to have more breakthroughs into writing about more interesting things, because you have finally put aside some of the worries that you have written down over and over again every single day. That's interesting, although the boredom is like something I struggled against really hard. And I also began to search for specific prompts to write about. I don't think that's really the intention of this time, but that is how I ended up using it. Which kind of brings me to my mini review of The Artist's Way in general. There are so many good prompts for journaling in this book. There are literally hundreds. Let's see how many. So the primary way that this book is set up is as a 12-week course in creative recovery. So let me give you some examples from the chapter titles. We have weeks that focus on recovering a sense of power, recovering a sense of possibility, recovering a sense of strength, compassion, self-protection, autonomy, and finally faith, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Cameron states that you can use this however you want, but the idea is sort of If you want to, you can start from the beginning and go through all those 12 weeks using the morning pages and a couple other tools that she outlines in the book. For me, I was finding that I was not quite in a place where I wanted to do the whole course. However, I could easily see myself about a year ago when I was working a full-time office job and I wasn't a freelancer yet. I could see that being very, very useful. It's sort of about, she doesn't use the word burnout, but she describes a lot of corporate or working world settings that can encroach on a person's creativity and how to move forward from those. I think that's something we really need if we're in that moment, or something that we need to keep in our back pocket in case we as creators get into that mindset. The thing that I was super wary of when I started reading this was that it is highly spiritual. It's highly faith-based. I use those words very specifically. It's not necessarily religious, right? And also, as Cameron herself states, it is not meant exclusively for spiritual people. There are plenty of students of hers who are atheists, who are not spiritual in any way whatsoever. She kind of talks about, she uses the word God a lot, she uses the word creator a lot, and she kind of talks about it in a way, to my understanding, being you can describe, or you the artist can ascribe whatever meaning you want to those words, but there's like a sense of connectedness, a sense of a spiritual power that she is trying to get artists to access. And you don't have to agree with her exact interpretation of it. That is not super essential for the course. That's good, because if I had to agree with her, I would have put the book down. I'm still somewhat skeptical of it, if you can't already tell from my tone. I am still unpacking what I think that she means there, or what even my own interpretation of that is. But what's also good about it is that, let me show you, at least in this edition, there are these cool quotes from many, many different creators in the margins that sort of interact very well with what she's talking about. Like this, they all have them on pretty much every page. And so it doesn't feel like a super prescriptive book that's only Cameron's, opinions on what artists should do. There's a lot of different anecdotes and opinions interacting within the book, so I think it's definitely worth picking up in that regard. Each chapter has different exercises and different writing tasks, and like I said, that is just a wealth of prompts for being reflective about your creative life and your creative health, getting in touch with yourself in a way that is really beneficial to your process, in my opinion. For me, it was definitely worth a look at. I didn't buy it. I got it from my library, as you can probably tell. That is always an option if you're trying out these craft books. I think that, is a good way to give them a test run. Will I continue to do these morning pages themselves? Well, I got really excited about them by the end. Like I said already, it was by no means a daily thing for me, but when I feel the need to push through something in a project or kind of do some creative nurturing for myself, I think this is a really great tool to have. All right, that's it for today. If you'd like to stick around for more videos like this one, where I talk about journaling, where I talk about creative health and other just, fun things. I'm also a visual artist. If you'd like to check out some of my art, I'll have a link to my Redbubble store down below. But as I was saying, if you could give me a sub, that would be very cool, or maybe a like and a comment. If not, I'm just glad that you're here checking out my videos. For the more goofs and chit chat of my daily life, you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I'm at mroseera. And until next time, thanks so much. Bye.